It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, sharing my time with you. We don't applaud or do anything of such sort here, but I want you to just pause for a moment and applaud yourself on the inside for being brave to sing hymns without the assistance of music. So just go within for a moment and just say, you did a great job. Standing here, I'm sweating because that's a sign for me. That's a sign for me. We did all great. So just use that motto. The topic that Spirit has presented for me to work with has been with me for almost a week at this point, between my home in Casadega and my place of employment in DeLand. I passed this KOAN storage facility, and they have a little sign, and every week they have a new sign. And this sign said, know the sign language, it comes in handy. No pun intended. But there's a sense of humor there. So the focus point is about sign language and how it helps us or otherwise. So as I'm reflecting on this same phrase twice a day, going back and forth for work, I have to just pay attention and I have to understand what is the message here. And as we understand, our life, ever since a child, Santa Claus has been in our lives, and we have to keep track of our behavior to receive gifts of appreciation at the end of the year, and so forth. But we always look for signs through a childhood phase or maturity or an adult life. We're always entangling ourselves with signs. So this morning as I wake up, I just had an awareness of where Spirit is leading, but I had no idea how am I going to work this or how they're going to motivate this conversation. So I just went to this old book, Becoming a Spiritualist, and it is a good read for people that are wanting to know more about spiritualism. It was first published in 1962. And there's a chapter in here, so I'm just flipping through. It's like, give me a sign, give me something to hang on, latch on to, and work with it. So I was led to chapter number 12, and it says Inner Vision. So as I'm reading the lines and the verbiage, it's just becoming clearer and clearer about how the signs always have been in front of us. Growing up as a child, for me, I was always asked to pay attention to what's going on around you, become more aware of my surroundings so that I can have a better judgment to stay where I need to be or move away from the situation that was not in my favor, being with kids and having I would say myself, I was mischievous. I was not troublesome, but I was mischievous. So I could climb trees, I could run in and out of homes to get my ball that I was playing with. And if my marble went into somebody else's home, I was not hesitant. But my mother always taught me, as long as you don't disrespect other people's boundaries, you're fine. So if I'm aware of other people's boundaries, I'm fine, but at the same time I have to pay attention to what's going on in my surroundings. So in an indirect way, I feel my mother was sort of teaching me to understand the language of signs. Time went on, and I always was mindful. I always was reading the energy of the group and the classroom and the workspace, and I was always utilizing somewhere connecting to my internal compass. And I always was ready to either step out of something or step into something. And it just depended how I felt and how I felt connected at that moment. Life went on, a few more years, and I was given an opportunity to learn healing in India. And that's where I feel paying attention to the sign became more evident for me. I had no idea where I was leading on at that point, where my life would be tomorrow. But I was much connected in the here and the now in that time. And I feel like that sort of helped me understand my own sensitive aspects of my life. So when I was learning to work with clients, participants in the room, we were to scan their bodies to look for areas that are feeling off, hot or cold, different, using my own compass to where the work needs to be done. It always had a feeling, a sign on the inside, that would say, oh, stop here for a little bit longer and see how the vibrations are, how things are going, and to palpate what's happening around. So strengthening of the sign language carried on very naturally from that point forward. Time moved on. I came to the United States. I discovered Casadega. I discovered my religion that I'm very proud of. That religion even furthermore strengthened my sign language. In each and every cultural, religious community, we all rely on signs. We look for certain symbols. We look for certain things that strengthen if we are on the right path or if we are not. I use that on a moment-to-moment basis. I look for signs. I use my internal compass to palpate what I need to be doing and if I'm in the right place or not. So as my development started in my journey, and from this point, it is all of us. I am sharing my story because this story is not just mine. All of us in this room has experienced this in our own unique way. This is called knowing. When you know where you are is the right place to be, or to know how much is too much and how much is too little. There's a sense of knowing. Something is trained. If you're working through a measurement, it is appropriate. If you put 2 pounds of sugar in a cake mixture when it says half a pound, it has its own recourse. But still, you have to follow through a sense of knowing how much is too much and how much is too little. So as I'm growing through my journey of spiritualism, we were talked about signs. This was my first 3 months of development. Pay attention to the signs, what Spirit is trying to give you, or what you're feeling, sensing, using your 5 senses. What are the signs? What happens? Does the hair on your arms rise, or your vocal cord chokes up, and if your heart is having a feeling of receiving some information? Pay attention to what's going on. And once again, it became a sense of knowing. Life is very fast-paced, and we have desensitized ourselves in many different ways. We have sort of tuned out our sensitivities because we are so used to either being given something that is already done for us or just wanting something needs to be claimed upon. We really don't have that connectivity with this of where we are drawn to. But that challenges me because every time I put myself in that student mode of where my sensitivity is, I've come up with a wonderful aha experience on myself. So going through that 7-day time period with this repeated thing about remember your sign language, it comes in handy. Friday evening, I finished work, and I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to go straight to this coffee shop. I'm going to have my cappuccino and a fig bar. I'm going to just have a downtime. So I met up with some friends and we had a nice downtime. And after that, they wanted to go to this shop because they were selling Girl Scout cookies. Well, you know, that's a sign in its own. There's something, something exciting is waiting there. So I was like, sure, we'll walk over there. We went there, but the Girl Scout cookies were not there. But as we walked in this one corner, there were inspirational wood carvings that would say, you know, live up to your dream, you're at the right place. One of them on the bottom says, choose joy. And I'm like, oh, choose joy, right here. So I took my selfie and I moved on. There was a little want, a desire to say, like, should I take this home? But I already get accused of being narcissistic because I can live up to my name and manipulate it in many different ways. So I took a picture and then I moved on. A few hours later, Saturday morning, yesterday, I went for breakfast. I said, I was having just an off start. So I said, let me make my inner child happy. Let me go feed it first. So I went for the breakfast, and I enjoyed my coffee and my breakfast. And I came back. There's a bag sitting in front of my door. From the same shop I was there yesterday, a few hours ago. I opened the box, exactly the same sign. Choose joy is sitting in front of my door. this is not a true example of sign language, but there was a big sign. It was meant to be received. And my journey through this year has been how to accept gifts of appreciation with gratitude and be connected with them. In the moment of connection, as I received that gift, I was grateful. I was excited because it's right here, you know. What more can I ask for? So that was one sign, just sort of validated if I am doing something from simplicity and genuinity of my heart, things will show up. We are all at a point and place in our lives. For some of us, life is too big. For some of us, life has been mostly lived. And for some of us, we are just starting. But we have the ability to receive our gifts, our blessings, should we feel connected to our own inner compass. That little quickening of excitement when I saw that sign, I feel, brought the sign right to my doorsteps. Nothing bigger that I can think of how grateful life can be. And just life went on. It's a great story in many different ways, but here we are, sitting in our journeys, wanting more from God, the same God that is existing within us, and yet being so severely desensitized that we don't pay attention when that God talks to us from the inside out. So as I was reading this chapter in this book, the inner vision, the writer keeps talking about the God that is within ourselves. The you is reaching out to you, and it is talking to you at all times. It is talking to all of us at all times. So listen and pay attention to that voice, that knowing, that clues. So, if you were to be born in India, there are a lot of nuances. And to me, sometimes the sign language is like, am I supposed to be so orthodox or so superstitious that everything has to be palpated through time? So I pushed myself, seen a sign, and moved on and carried on. And then, yes, I had to pay a price or I had to learn a lesson from it. So growing up in India is funny. On Saturdays, religiously, you are not supposed to buy metal objects, anything that is machinery or heavy metal. It's just a story from my life. And for many years, every time we had to go get something, it had metal in it. My mom, even though we were born Christians, my mom said, it's Saturday, you're not supposed to buy metal. Wait till tomorrow. Life would come and go, but it became so ingrained. So when I came to the U.S., total different subset of culture, I found myself for many years relying on those clues that I was trained with. And this is where I'm coming at. In our lives, since we were born, we get trained so subconsciously that we don't realize, even if it's right or wrong. And we just carry on because we're just programmed. We are so mechanical. We're so robotic in our activities and our impression that we just carry on. So going back to the aspect of when my development was important for me, and I was sitting in studies, and I was sitting in groups and circles and classes, I was asked to create myself a dictionary of signs. When you ask Spirit to show me something, and you ask for that sign, you have to create a relationship with that sign. We call it an alphabet, creating your alphabet. A red card, if consistently becomes a sign of excitement, joyfulness, is most likely will be in that vocabulary. So if I'm connecting with one of you, and if I see a red card in my mind's eye, the sign is there for me. But if I use the sign with respect, it will lead me in the right direction. But should I tell you, I see a red card, well, maybe you got hit by a red card, that's a trauma for you. But there's a sign language that you have to build trust around. And working with Spirit and our divine consciousness always asks to work behind trust. What you receive has a certain meaning, certain understanding, and you use it skillfully and adequately. So when we are asking for our guides and our angels and our worker bees to show up, and we are relying on their information, how would you know if they are giving you the right information or not? You build trust with that language. You let them set a vocabulary and alphabet with you, how it's going to be. So my vocabulary on Friday was, when I finished my choose joy excitement, I knew there was a BMW sitting on a car lot. I have no necessity to buy a car, but sometimes I challenge myself to keep my negotiating skills sharpened by going to the car lot, talking to the salespeople, and just getting, tackled by them, because it gives me a little mentality, agility of mind. But I had no plan, but I just wanted to look at this car. So I went and I looked at this car and I opened the door, everything was fine. I sat in it and we started it, we just had a chit chat. Fortunately, the salesperson knew me for some time, so he kind of had an idea he's not getting anything today. But entertain him. And I was so grateful for him, but I went through the motion of having a conversation with him. When I left, I said, Spirit, if this is something that I really need to be, focusing upon, give me a sign, So I went on. So at the breakfast place in the morning when I was feeding my inner child, I pulled in and there's this Porsche sitting over here, an old Porsche. And that's my language, that's my sign language. It's just, but the excitement came in and I looked at it, I said, so that's my sign, the BMW is out of, scratch it out. So I scratched it off my list. I went in there, I sat next to the guy that owned the BMW. He talked to me about Rolex 24 going in Daytona. He said, go there, it's a life of an event. You will enjoy it, there's a lot more going on. So stimulating our senses through the signs that we set with Spirit always brings us more signs of affirmation. So when you ask for Spirit to give you a sign, if you're on the right track, if this is the right choice or the wrong choice, if you get a sign, yes, no, indifferent, show the sense of excitement, because your excitement is a frequency, a vibration that perpetuates and acts as a catalyst for Spirit to say, ooh, he's excited about this sign. We're going to give him more information because this is where he needs to be. This is what he's looking for. And through that focal point, through that vision of scope, we receive more information. We receive more guidance. And this has been just sort of a great learning curve of seeing this sign for a week and then going through my own personal aha moments, like how close I can get with understanding what a sign can do for us. So as we are growing in life, how many times we've asked, if we need to have this conversation with this person, is the right thing to do or not? We need a sign. But when we ask signs, you have to understand they can be impressed upon us in many different ways. We have 5 senses, and these senses can be heightened within those signs. And you have to be flexible and adaptable at all times, because if you become rigid, Spirit will always tackle you down because they don't like that aspect of rigidity. It only goes so far, and it's once again tried and tested thing through my scope of work. Be flexible, be gentle to yourself by impressions that you're receiving, and set that vocabulary and know what works for you, because this will help you to go from point A to point B in our lives. Touching in very quickly with the understanding, the natural law that becomes operative behind this understanding of sign language is natural law of receptivity. And I've talked about on several occasions about this, but natural law of receptivity becomes a very key component in this. Just like the word describes, receptive, to be ready to receive. Doesn't matter what is being given, just to be ready to be received. So the natural law of receptivity, in an elaborated way, says, once again, through our lifetime, we are programmed to give, do for others than yourself. We are always sort of at the last 2 people in the row, but we're always driving to be good to others. The last one is good to myself. But I would say reverse that around, because if you're good to yourself, you will always have room to do more good for others. So when it comes to the law of receptivity, you have to understand when you're ready to receive, you will not receive until you are ready to give. By giving, you receive more. But when you're receiving, you got to say, I receive with whole intent, with my whole heart, and in full awareness. So my sign languages in my stories were silly, simple, but as I was receiving through excitement. So my sign language keeps continuing to be strong. We tune into the God's vibration, we tune into the infinite energy, and we say, how we feel within it, is that the sign? Yes, it is. And if you're not having a free flow within the spiritual connection, keep working at it. Keep fine-tuning it. Keep asking for a better vocabulary. Keep asking for a refined connection. And it will happen over time. We treat Dalai Lama as a high holiness. That's what his title is. He may have been born to be that. But until he got to that point and place, he was just an ordinary monk through his lifetime. Our religious leaders, the seats, the positions that they hold, they have asked for those signs. Give me a sign if I'm there. If I'm there to get to that point and place where I can serve others. At least I feel that's where the intent is. And once they receive the sign, they take action. They take steps to make that possible. So through the law of receptivity, when we receive signs of confirmation or affirmations, if you sit on it, it's probably going to stay where it is. You have to take an action to make those things come true to life. So if I'm wanting to work on my physical fitness, my physical agility, I can think, God will put a sign in front of me, it will put people in front of me, yet personal responsibility says, until I will take action, I will not create that into reality. So taking a cognizant action in our lives becomes very crucial to understand. You can sit on a pile of gold, but it will probably never multiply or get bigger until you utilize it properly. So are our gifts and our sensitivities. Unless we work on them, they are just what they are. Natural born mediums or trained mediums, natural born healers or trained healers, they're doing something. They're taking cognizant, conscious action to better themselves on a day-to-day basis. This is one thing that I have appreciated about Journey of Spiritualism. Unless you walk your talk, unless you put into action, you're no different than others. By putting our work into action, we prove on an ongoing basis the continuity of life. And how do we build that rapport with the continuity of life? We talk to Spirit, we ask for signs. Impress us with who you are, where you've been, what you've done. And we use the sign to communicate to where we need to be and how this communication needs to flow. I encourage each and every one of us here to learn to listen to your inner compass. If you're wanting new experiences with infinite intelligence, your sign language, your guides, your master teachers, build a rapport by sitting in silence, meditating, putting things out in prayer, what you want from them, and then pay attention to the signs. And when the signs are given, take actions and manifest what is yours. Thank you for being here.